Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. And today we're doing a late Sunday evening stream. We're going to be looking at this video by Ayden. You'll have to remind me of the name of this guy's channel, but his video is Atheism is a Religion, and I've got the, it's going to be an open panel, so anybody who wants to hop on can, within reason. I'm going to be selective about who we add. It won't be just anybody, and I reserve the right to kick somebody if I want.
All right, well, sounds good to me. How's everybody doing out there? Looking to have a pretty good stream here, kind of change things up a little bit and get some new perspectives in on things. So yeah, with that being said, we're gonna kind of begin the video, and whoever would like to come on, please feel free to try and join with the link. It's at the top of the comments section. AJ, if you want to pin that, if it's not already pinned, that's all right. Let's take it away.
Restart the video, and can you remind me of the name of the channel, Ayden?
So the name of the channel is Alex Hexagon. So with that being said, we're up to the relevant part of the video, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Given because he has this big long introduction that doesn't really deal with anything directly except kind of just your bog standard YouTube intro shit. So with that being said, we'll look at what Joe Dodecahedron has to say about this.
Joe Dodecahedron.
A few months ago, I made a poll where I asked you all a very simple question. What is your religion? And the results of that were very interesting indeed. 39% of responders identified as Christians, followed not too far behind by the 22% who identified as atheists. 17% said that they were spiritual, but not necessarily ascribing to any organized religion. 9% identified as Muslim, alongside 9% of pagans, with a mere 4% identifying as Hindus. If we break this down to its raw relevance, what this means is that 78% of respondents...
I would love to know, those 17%, what does the word spiritual mean, and why are they not just atheists?
Right? Yeah, I've always kind of wondered, people who are just say that they're, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. It's like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Like, what is... I guess there really is no hard line definition or, any kind of reason for... I guess there's no like bog standard doctrine was kind of the word I was thinking for it, but I don't know.
Yeah, like what is a spirit?
Yeah, I don't know. It's the magic stuff.
Defined as theists, meaning that they believe in some sort of spirituality, whereas 22% of respondents identified as atheists, who reject such notions entirely. It's this 22% of you that I wish to focus on today.
Oh, snap.
But why? What's so bad about atheism? Well, in my view, atheism is one of the most damaging ideologies of the modern era, and is responsible for so many of the...
I love how he does the stereotypical, like, documentary, like, color shift, like, the face shift of, like, Joe Schmo was just your average, everyday family man, until he wasn't. And then they do the color shift, like, oh my god, it's so fucking overdone.
Atheism, not even once.
Actively face today that I honestly can't believe it isn't talked about more. Atheists pride themselves in being logical people who are grounded wholeheartedly in reality, which is an assessment that I, for the most part, actually tend to agree with. The reality is that faith in the divine is called belief for a reason, because none of us, at least at this stage in mankind's development, really knows for sure how our universe actually operates. And as such, debating something we cannot prove or disprove will pretty much always be a fruitless endeavor. Therefore, I'm not going to make any spiritual arguments here. Instead, I'm going to focus on what it is that atheists claim to care about, and that is something we can all agree actually exists: reality. The number one reason why you shouldn't be an atheist can honestly be summarized in a single sentence. Religion is inherent to the human condition.
Yeah, no, I was about to pause it anyways. Like, so are plenty of other things in the human condition. Like, so is polio, so is smallpox, so is like death and childbirth. All of those things are inherent to the human condition. That doesn't mean that they're good just because it's basically just an argument from nature fallacy.
Back pain, war.
Yeah, like just because those things are inherent doesn't mean that they are inherently good. And not only that, that doesn't mean that they have to stay inherent to human nature either. One of those examples that I provided, smallpox, yeah, that was a specter over us ever since the earliest stages of our development as a species. But, about 50 years ago, we decided that we were going to completely get rid of smallpox. And surely enough, we've eradicated it as a disease. It's no longer a specter that hangs over human affairs. So we could get rid of that. We sure has a chance of getting rid of your stupid fucking arguments.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a good argument against a designer too, because like back pain, death in childbirth, wisdom teeth, these things are inherent to the human body, but that just makes it seem like this isn't a very good design. If this was designed, then it wasn't a good design.
Not by any means.
Go ahead.
Well, what the hell does that mean? There's this bizarre idea we have in the modern world that atheism is the default mode of mankind, and that religion is this artificial intervention that overtakes our natural logic, forcing us to act irrationally as such. But this really couldn't be further from the truth. Judging from history, it is extremely rare for someone to be an atheist, but it almost
It's extremely rare to be an atheist, historically speaking, because religious institutions have always had the market cornered on what society has done. Like, they've always been hand in hand with government because religion and government are two things that have generally the same motive, and that is getting people to adhere to a certain set of standards for the sake of their cooperation and ultimately their co-optedness into the government or religion system. That's how they operate. So obviously they're going to be synonymous with each other. So naturally, you're not going to be all that surprised to hear that in the time period that this guy's illustrating here, if you decide to be one of those guys in the crowd over there on the bottom and be like, this Jesus guy ain't so good to me, I don't think he's very legit, he is. And the guy over there on the pulpit would be like, what I say ain't got to be more a mistake.
You what?
Heretic, he is.
You what, mate?
You fucking what, mate? Right, well, I'll tell you what, those burning at the stake might disagree with you.
You've got a
mate.
license to be an atheist.
You got your atheism license.
almost seems like a rule for us to be naturally religious. But why? Well, from a biological perspective, us humans really aren't that great in many ways. We aren't as strong as the orangutan, we aren't as fast as the cheetah, we can't swim like the fish, and we certainly can't fly like the bird. But we do have one major...
I like to quote my friend Gutsick Gibbon Erica that in this situation, that if somebody says the word orangutan and they pronounce it with the extra G on the end, they don't know what they're talking about. So shout out to her.
Hell yeah.
Major asset going for us, and that is our brains. Our unrivaled intelligence is what catapulted humans into becoming by far the most dominant species on our planet. And
I mean, like, dominant by what standard, though? Like, yeah, we dominate the specific environments that we inhabit right now. That's true. But that doesn't mean that we dominate every single part of the planet. Like, you know, the Marianas Trench. I don't think that we're really going there all that frequently. You know, like the South Pole isn't exactly somewhere that humans just kind of set up shop all the time and just have a picnic. Yeah, like we've been to those places. It's not to say that we're incapable of going there, but when it comes to conquering, quote unquote, I imagine conquest in that context to mean like living there and taking it over as an environment and like molding it and changing it to what you want it to be. And we just haven't done that. To a huge majority of the planet, whether it be the oceans, whether it be the sky, like there's a huge amount of environments that other animals use every single day that we, through our anatomy, haven't been able to take advantage of. I know that was kind of like part of his point earlier, but it's kind of contradictory to say like, yeah, we're not as good at these animals and all these other things, but we also conquered everything. It's like, no, we didn't.
Yeah, it's like if anything, bacteria dominate the planet.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like the argument that the Earth is so fine-tuned for human life, but like a huge percent of it is just oceans, like you said.
I mean, this very, very narrow slice of the history of our planet is pretty ideal for our habitation, but that's not to say that this entire thing was made just for us. That's easy to say when you're a fucking Bronze Age goat herder, though, I guess.
Of such intelligence is our amazing recognition abilities, especially when it comes to recognizing patterns and shapes. For example, this is a video of a door in my house, and as you can see, it's a very ancient wooden door that is in dire need of replacement, with numerous scratches and blotches all over it from decades worth of use. And oh look, what's this? A seahorse.
That's bloody just stain. It is right on my door.
I like to punch me doors when I'm angry.
It's the jizz stain of Christ, it is. I had it in the toast. You see the picture of the Virgin Mary. Let me tell you, I got the picture of Jesus what in the door with my jizz stain.
Yeah, the door's not a virgin anymore.
Yeah, they say the door's impregnable. I proved in other wars I did.
Do right. As humans, it is deeply hardwired into us to conjure such artificial patterns and shapes, even if they aren't necessarily there. Before the dawn of cars and electricity, there was borderline zero light pollution in the sky, and as such, our ancestors could easily see the stars and the wider vastness of space with much more clarity than we do now. And what is it they did with such a vista? They, of course, noticed patterns. Some stars, when interlinked together, form shapes that we today call...
Oh my god, he did it! He did the thing, AJ! He did the thing!
Yeah,
I like...
Alex Hexagon?
He did the thing. No, I like this. Much like his arguments, this hexagon is very lopsided and uneven. So I just wanted to point that out.
All constellations, and from that spawned the concept of star signs and other mythical elements. Despite the immense differences between us humans around the world, there is one universal observation that remains true, no matter what your culture, continent, or country is, and that's that at some point in time, your ancestors were almost guaranteed to be religious in one way or another. Indeed, every place on Earth is...
I mean, superstitious would probably be a better way of putting it. Because religion implies that, like, every single one of them adhered to a very strict social organization of things. And I disagree with that. I think that there's a superstitious element to human thought, because we're obviously not just a machine that objectively evaluates every single portion of reality. I think that in conscious and subconscious ways, we do operate through means of superstition. But that doesn't mean that we're not capable of trying to divorce ourselves as much as possible from those sorts of notions. So, no, I don't kind of agree with, oh, all of your ancestors must have been religious at one point or another. And even if they were, what does that really mean? What bearing does that have on whether or not it's true?
Has independently spawned their own deities and religious systems of belief. Europe, Africa, the Americas, Asia, Oceania, Antarctica, oh, well, maybe not Antarctica, but you get the point. The idea that religion is this artificial construct, as opposed to one that naturally ferments, considering just how dominant it has been throughout the human history thus far, is a baffling declaration, all things considered. Now, whether or not it's natural because there is a divine being who made us that way, or whether it's some form of creative mental defense to rationalize our existence in a way that...
I mean, you mentioned it earlier in the stream, or earlier in the video, rather, without even realizing that you kind of hit the nail on the head. It's pattern recognition. It's literally just an extrapolation of, well, I've observed this kind of behavior in the environment, and that behavior correlated with something I did or did not do. Therefore, that correlation means that I caused that thing to happen, and therefore that's basically the foundation of every single religion at one point or another.
Yeah,
is this correlation equals causation, and that's a fallacy. It's not something that you should use to base reality off of. I'm sorry, go ahead, AJ.
Can you turn the volume up on the video? And,
oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, like I was saying, like, it's more comforting, the idea that there's an afterlife after we die. It's just as simple as that. I think that's part of the reason why religions have existed. And like you mentioned, that literally people were afraid to die because of being executed for claiming they were an atheist. A lot of people might have claimed that they were religious just to go along with society. We'll never know what population number that would be of people who just went along with the crowd.
Throughout history, one thing that we do have as a constant throughout history is we do have examples of people in societies who were atheistic that did make criticisms of their society's respective religion. That is a constant throughout our history, because even though he tried just kind of passively dismissing it earlier in the video, no, atheism is the default in terms of belief or lack thereof. You do not just come out of the womb believing in some sort of religion. That's inculcated into you at some point in the future. And he tries sidestepping that by saying, oh, well, every society eventually adhered to some kind of religion. It's like, that doesn't, for one, the very basic fact that they didn't all adhere to one religion kind of speaks for itself as far as I'm concerned. But for another thing, the fact of the matter is that it's just a matter of superstitious pattern recognition that anybody can do. It doesn't mean that it's any sort of like signpost that indicates whether something is true or not.
But Ayden, we weren't all literally born with fedoras.
That is true. You know what? I'm sorry. I'm shutting my account down.
That we can comprehend. Despite my leanings, I won't pretend to be certain. But the fact is that humans are clearly naturally hardwired to be religious, at least in some regard, and this tends to manifest tangibly with large groups of people, a trait of ours that will always be apparent, even when...
Yeah, and another thing that manifests with large groups of people is religious disagreement and schisming, and people disagreeing on the notion of what those things are, both fundamentally in terms of like whether or not this thing even existed or not, or in minor little quibblings and disagreements that be labeled as heresies. Those are all over the place in every single religion without exception in human history. So if one of them is more true than the others, you'd think that one of them would be a little bit more defensible and therefore would be a little bit less riddled with that kind of constant infighting.
Yeah, and to add on to what I said a second ago, it makes sense that people would be so much more afraid of death when lifespans were so much shorter and there was death all around them, that people would desperately want there to be an afterlife that's, permanent bliss. But as, medical science has increased, our lifespans are longer and longer. And I think you see a decrease. I don't know if it's correlated, but you see a decrease in religiosity along with that.
I definitely do think that there is a correlation between those things. As far as superstition is concerned, like obviously I still think there's elements of that to this day, but I think that largely stems from the parts of science and the parts of our reality that we live within that we don't inherently understand. And while that's narrowed with time, the gulf in terms of the amount of things that we don't understand has only gotten smaller and smaller. That isn't to say that if we look back at these time periods that he's constantly referencing, like we're basically talking about the Middle Ages moving back from there, essentially, from the artwork that he's trying to display. That's time. Right. That's a time where life was incredibly cheap and we didn't have any real understanding of even the basic notion of things that we take for granted today, like germ theory, like this person being carried off here in this religious artwork, whether they're somebody that is in fact, Jesus, or they're just representing your average person, that person's chance of getting saved through medical treatment right now, today, is far higher. And as a result, you're right, your average person tends not to place their trust in superstition. They tend to place it in things that we can tangibly observe and understand. But let's hear about how that's not the case, because dumb.
When we try for it not to be. And to prove this point, we only actually need to take...
Sorry, that's not the case because fedora. Sorry, thank you for reminding me, Mr. Hexagonal Man.
Look at the modern atheist movement itself. Atheism started off as a movement by intellectuals who started to view the societal restrictions that the dominant religion of the time, Christianity, imposed as a cumbersome burden that got in the way of human progress, specifically scientific progress. I'm sure almost everyone has heard the story of Galileo, who in the early 1600s made the accurate assessment that the Earth is in fact a globe that orbits around the sun. As a result of this, he was placed under house arrest by his local Christian Inquisition for holding such heretical beliefs that at the time were believed to contradict the scripture of the Bible and thus required punishment. This is why the atheism movement started. So that science, aka...
What? Wait. What? You kind of jumped the shark there.
Yeah, you want to bring that back?
Yeah, let's take that back about 20 seconds.
That the Earth is in fact a globe that orbits around the sun. As a result of this, he was placed under house arrest by his local Christian Inquisition for holding such heretical beliefs that at the time were believed to contradict the scripture of the Bible and thus required punishment. This is why the atheism movement started.
I mean, that's patently absurd. Galileo was a Christian. He was never an atheist at any point in his life. So, no, that's not where the atheism movement, quote unquote, started.
It's a perfect example of Christianity or religion holding back scientific progress, literally.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the full story of Galileo is very nuanced, but suffice it to say, he's not the one that originally made that assessment. It was Copernicus before him that made that assessment of heliocentrism. It was primarily his observation of the moons of Jupiter that made him think that we were, rather than living in a heliocentric universe, living in rather than living in a geocentric universe, living in one where the Earth was not, in fact, the only object whereby things could be influenced. And he didn't even get imprisoned by the church in the same way that most people think of it as. It was a very ridiculous disagreement, suffice it to say, between him and the Pope. I don't have 20 minutes to get into it, historically speaking, but this is just a great example of historical misinformation. I would even say disinformation. I'd go so far as to say in this context, really, because you, as somebody, I'm speaking to, Mr. Octagon here when I say this, but you have access to the internet and the ability to look into that information and look into the nuance of that. But you're just crafting a ridiculous narrative here of here's a petty 17th century dispute that actually turned into a foundational moment for our understanding of the solar system and universe at large. That was the founding of the atheism movement. Nobody thinks that. Not one atheist thinks, oh yeah, Galileo, he's the father of atheism. No, the father of atheism was the first person to ever have an independent intellectual thought. That was the founder of atheism.
So that science, aka the pursuit of tangible and observable truth, could freely spring forth and blossom without such authoritarian restrictions. And as such, so much of our understanding of the universe has changed, even within my short lifetime. The best example of this has to be Pluto. When I was a child, we were taught that Pluto was the smallest planet in our solar system. But as time passed, we learned that there were in fact many tiny planets like Pluto out there, and as such, we recategorized Pluto as a mere dwarf planet instead. That is the beauty of science. It is ever-changing and always evolving.
What was that, sir?
I don't think that's true either. It's considered a trans-Neptunian object. Like, I don't think it's a planet at all.
No, it's a dwarf planet. And I mean, like, Pluto isn't the only... Well, there's a couple of dwarf planets. Ceres is actually a dwarf planet that's between Mars and Jupiter. It's in the asteroid belt of our solar system, and it's considered a dwarf planet. That was also once a planet as well, or at least considered one in our solar system. So, I mean, like, I ultimately get the point he's making. Like, it's great because science can change, and it can change its categorization of things. And the reason why it can do that is because we constantly have access to more and more information. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Like,
Yeah,
isn't that... It's a good thing that we don't dogmatically adhere to the idea that, oh, Pluto is still a planet. Maybe we've come across hundreds of other trans-Neptunian objects, and we've come across loads of other objects similar to the size of Ceres within our asteroid belt, which would totally throw out our understanding of the term planet and basically make it useless. That's really the reason why we changed the term, not because it suddenly shrunk in size or whatever the fuck. It's really just a term of convenience at that point, because we don't want kids to have to memorize the 83 planets or whatever the hell it would be after all of the different objects we've discovered that would meet the former definition of the term. That's really what it is. It's not anything more than that. It's not that deep, bro.
And yet today, if you look at what science is slowly devolving into, and by proxy its associate atheist movement as a whole, what you'll find is that it is becoming less about asking questions and more about pretending to know all the answers. To take the atheist...
What? No, it's not. No, it's not. Like, okay, let me just preface this. For like the 0.5% of atheists that are Gnostic atheists that do say, yeah, I know for a fact that there is no God. Yeah, those people are idiots. Like, because they have no idea whatsoever where they're not for sure that a God exists. I'm sorry, that's my opinion that they are idiots if they say definitively that there is no God. But that's like nobody within this community whatsoever. I've encountered stunningly few people in my life that would say that there's just definitive, no proof whatsoever that there is God. Therefore, that just means that God is an impossibility in order to exist. That's basically his argument that he's making here. So, congratulations, you've destroyed the straw man.
Atheist view that belief in the divine is naught more than an attempt to rationalize why we exist in a way we can tangibly understand. It thus makes sense why, when said faith is threatened, as in the case of Galileo, such believers will respond with hostility. Because that would mean that the faith is wrong, and that would mean the reason why we truly exist would be a mystery. A mystery that is an open door to existential dread and nihilism. A door that no one wants to open.
Why is it inherently a door to nihilism? Why does it just... because Magic Man isn't real, that just means that nothing matters. Like, what a false dichotomy.
Yeah, and that's why if you look at the percentage of prisoners by their religious faith, it's like way higher by per capita that it's religious people and not atheistic people.
Look,
and
existentialism is basically, yeah, that idea that I will make my own purpose out of my life. I have been born into a universe where I have an opportunity to do whatever I want, to be able to set my destiny forward however much I am able to with the confines of my circumstances. I will use those to mold a circumstance where I have made my own meaning for myself. That is perfectly valid in a universe where the God of the Bible does not, in fact, exist. But no, we've got to make it so that either Jesus exists or nothing matters whatsoever. That's atheism, right?
Magic Man or bust.
That's right. Such a stupid fucking argument.
But the irony is, many modern atheists, when their worldview is threatened, become just as defensive as the believers they mock.
Oh!
As of the time of recording, trust the science is a phrase that has been going around a lot lately. And
that's why we have an equivalent to Charlie Hebdo for atheists, right?
yeah, right. All those atheist terrorists running around unobstructed in society. Well, first of all, I would like to welcome Karisu to the room. Karisu, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
And I would also like to... this time I'm going to have you say the name, AJ.
Roshina.
Roshina, thank you. They have said for $9.99, thank you very much for your generosity, by the way, they're thinking of redefining planet again. And no, Pluto won't be one. It remains the requirement that a planet must orbit our sun and adds planets that orbit brown dwarfs. Okay, well, that's interesting. That's an interesting recategorization, because we've only just recently been able to gain the ability to really look into brown dwarfs, given their tiny size relative to other objects. Especially even just red dwarves are massive in comparison to brown dwarves. So
brown dwarves are basically Jupiter, so...
Well, they're like a hyper Jupiter, essentially.
Yeah, they're going to be bigger, but that's to give you a sense of what they are for people who don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing, if sorry to interject, but this makes me wonder too about you're just straight up like starless planets, the ones that are just sort of roaming the galaxy. I forget the exact name for them, but they're out there, and it's like what we call them planets. The rogue planets. Thank you. Most obvious name. It's been a day.
No, don't worry. Don't worry.
Yes, we have Karisu Tomato in here.
That's
what did he say?
He said Karusu Tomato. Yeah.
Yes. He got acknowledged by Dr. Hoven on his channel.
Oh, did he? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's about 2 weeks into me making videos. I think that's a pretty good accomplishment. I have a poll on my channel. Sorry to plug myself, but if you
Go
want to
ahead.
pick which avatar that I generated with AI that you think is best for Karusu Tomato, and I'll roll with it in the future. I don't know.
I like it. I like it. I like the plug, and I'm
Yeah, I'll
interested
put the
in
link
seeing the
to
result.
your channel since we can't link Ayden's channel since he doesn't have one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You don't get shit besides over here on Atheist Junior. I signed a contract and I'm raking it in. All
Yeah.
Aiden's just a
27
keyboard
episodes.
warrior riding on AJ's coattails, hovering. Kent called me a keyboard warrior, by the way. I actually finally watched the video this morning, like the full clip, and did my reaction to it, and kind of had to laugh because it's like, well, I am actually a blogger primarily, so he's kind of not wrong.
So Brody Alexander says in the chat, none of you know what theory even is. Well, Brody, it's an open panel. So I'll tell you what, you can come on and you can tell us what you think that theory means, because I'm pretty sure I know what theory means in a scientific context. But please, I would appreciate you to come on and enlighten me as to what that means. As far as the super chat was concerned, though, thank you very much for that. I wasn't aware.
Yes, thank you.
We'll keep going with this video.
Personally,
I'm actually going to bring it back a little bit because he's kind of getting into a new argument.
one wants to open. But the irony is, many modern atheists, when their worldview is threatened, become just as defensive as the believers they mock.
Gotcha!
As of the time of recording, trust the science is a phrase that has been going around a lot lately. And personally, I find this phrase to be absolutely fascinating. You see, I tend to write a lot, mostly for the scripts of these productions, but also numerous little stories that perhaps one day I will make public. Needless to say that the more you write, the more you will start to master the English language, and as such, gain the ability to read not just what the words in front of you say, but also to read between the lines. This phrase is a situation whereby I feel such—
Oh boy, so he's just trying to do a complex hand wave in front of you to say, okay, well, maybe somebody was well-intentioned when they say trust the science, but I'm going to read what they really mean into that. It's like, okay, so this is conspiracy mongering bullshit now. Gotcha.
such logic applies, because when the average person looks at it, it probably doesn't seem like that much of a big deal. But it really is. And it's because of this word right here. The. Why is it trust the science? Why not just trust science? If I introduce myself by saying, hi, I'm Alex Hexagon, you wouldn't bat an eyelid. But if I introduce myself by saying, hi, I'm the Alex Hexagon, you'd be like, the Alex Hexagon? The Alex Hexagon would imply that there are in fact other Alex Hexagons out there, but you can just dismiss them because I'm the real one.
No, that's not what it means at all. It means that in science, we do indeed have what would be considered a scientific consensus, but there's always going to be outliers of that consensus. Every single scientific theory that's ever been conceived of and has ever passed muster and made itself into a theory from its original hypothesis has had contenders who have gone otherwise and have even brought forward compelling evidence to state otherwise that just did not pass the same muster as that theory did. You're not one of them. You have nothing to support your hypothesis whatsoever because it's an unfalsifiable one. Like, I don't understand this argument. I could understand this argument if it was coming from another scientist. But this is coming from somebody who has no actual falsifiable hypothesis whatsoever. It's just a really silly basis of comparison, which isn't even to make commentary on the fact that the science, like what that is going to be different depending on who you talk to, because it's not an institution in the same way that a religion is. There is going to be other opinions out there that are not going to be suppressed in the way that a religious— you've never seen somebody in a lab coat burn at the stake because they had different results when they did a chemical examination of something, you know?
The exact same logic also applies here. The phrase trust the science is a subtle confession of competition, implying that there are other forms of science out there, but that they should be dismissed because they aren't the science. And what is the science? Well, whatever the clergy say that it is, of course. Despite the fact that, as alluded to earlier, the very nature of science is to ask questions, now, if
I mean, like, once again, to draw the comparison of like a clergyman in a religious organization with a scientist, a clergyman is not beholden to a constantly shifting, constantly changing set of standards that will shift and change depending on the information made available to them. They are upholding dogma. So I don't care if you earlier in the video tried to draw that comparison between the two. Oh, isn't it great that science doesn't have to adhere to dogma? All of that means fucking all if you're going to try to sneak this premise of, oh, scientists are just a bunch of clergymen in the back door. Like, you basically just tried front loading us with a bunch of things that you think sounded agreeable so that you could shove all this garbage in when you thought that we were disarmed. No, I think it's a bunch of bullshit, and it's a dishonest way of presenting your argument.
Contradictory garbage. Which one is it? Are they religious dogmatics, or are they free thinkers? Which one?
Well, it's just a matter of like when he says that they're clergy, like he invokes this. Oh well, it is in fact a dogma after all. No, it's not. It never has been. And you trying to just use language like that is not going to change that reality.
If a member of the public shows any sort of hesitation about the reigning scientific dogma imposed on them from above, far from being congratulated for having such curiosity, they are instead hounded, shamed, and punished, in a similar fashion to how Galileo was. Meanwhile, those who go along...
But they're not, though. No one was put under house arrest. No scientist was like, you can't leave your house because you thought the theory of gravity was slightly different than it actually was. Sorry, Albert Einstein. Sorry, I know you have this whole, general theory of relativity idea nonsense, but we got to be on a steady state. It's looking a lot more legit, which means that you're going to be a steady state under house arrest, bitch. Get in there. Never happened.
Hubble, you talking about that redshift one more time, we're going to do something about you.
Yeah.
Red state.
Red stump.
Red stump. Dead
along
dog.
with what they are told without question, are greatly rewarded. Atheism has, in many ways, become a religion in of itself. It has its own origin story. It has its own priests. It has its own congregation. Indeed, the cosmetics may be different, but the fundamental underlying psychology behind it all remains the same. It's our way.
The congregation is a college classroom. Like they're Christian colleges.
So let's go through these one by one, actually.
Ways become a religion in of itself. It has its own origin story.
Okay, so we have Adam and Eve here on the left, and we have the Big Bang, which is not a prerequisite to being an atheist whatsoever, a la Adam Lore. You don't have to believe in the Big Bang in order to be an atheist. Literally the only thing that is required to be an atheist is to not believe in a god or deities, but okay.
Story. It has its own priests.
Yeah, I've never once heard an atheist be critical of the man on the right in any way, shape, or form. I've never heard anybody claim to be an atheist and also say, oh man, Dawkins, maybe he isn't in fact the god emperor of the universe and everything around. Kill him, get him on the stake. No, it didn't happen.
It has its own congregation.
What was that? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's just gonna be like, you keep talking bad about Dawkins, we're gonna do the same thing we did to Hubble to you.
Dawkins is the worst.
You know, that Hubble Space Telescope, I gotta tell you, boy, that Edwin Hubble, he's on that thing right now to this day. We got all the pen amplifiers hooked up to him. He's still out there right now. He wished that he was dead, but no, he out there right now.
He's strapped to it.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep going at a good pace, but I'm cutting you guys off with the pausing. I
have to stay muted because I'm laughing so much.
Can you read this one, Ayden?
Sure. Oh, I didn't realize that we got another super chat. Thank you very much. They say atheism, or can you please read the name?
Roshina.
Roshina says atheism is a religion like a broken glass, like broken glass, like a broken piece of glass is toilet paper. Yeah, they're about as equivalent to each other. I mean, like, I feel like I'm using a broken glass as a piece of toilet paper while I hear this guy tell me that a college classroom is equivalent to a fucking congregation of people. So, yeah.
Indeed, the cosmetics may be different, but the fundamental underlying psychology behind it all...
Like, once again, like, he's showing all of this imagery, and I'll shut up about this afterwards, but I just need to say for the umpteenth time, none of this shit, like the Andromeda and the Milky Way galaxies coming together several million years from now, that's not a tenet of atheism. There is no tenets of atheism.
I interpreted him as trying to show, like, both of them symbolizing one science, one's religion, and really they're all coming together. That's the way I interpreted his metaphor here.
Come together right now.
It's the same.
Milkdromeda. Boom, boom, ba-da-ba-da.
It's our way or the highway. Of course, atheists would cry foul at such an accusation, claiming that they prioritize truth, not myth. Yet their truth is just that.
I love the Wojaks, because I always think of them as like grown men playing with dolls. It's like, your doll's the stupid doll, and my doll's the cool doll. Look at this, my action figure beat the shit out of your action figure. I'm right. It's like, okay, buddy, you got me.
Claiming that they prioritize truth, not myth. Yet their truth is just that, their truth. They selectively celebrate facts that fall into their worldview.
Yeah, that's because we're not arrogant enough to act like our truth is synonymous enough with the truth.
Yeah, it's just it's more like your opinion.
That's just like your opinion, man.
While disregarding all evidence to the contrary. Far from being a loose coalition of free thinkers that promote intellectual freedom and diversity of thought, the modern atheist movement has instead slowly transmogrified into becoming merely an opposite mirrored form of that of which preceded it, which is, primarily in the West at least, Christianity, with the values that most atheists claim to hold being ironically dictated to in reverse by that of which they claim not to value. For example, whereas Christianity believes in strict gender roles as per human nature, the modern atheist movement shuns such roles as sexist.
I mean, like, What do you mean as per human nature? Do you not realize that there were Aboriginal societies that had, like, words for other genders besides just male and female? Like, there were other societies besides the current one that made allowances for other gender identities, because it's not, in fact, just this very strict thing. And gender roles themselves are not this strict idea that was unchanging from society to society either. The amount that a woman could hold power, for example, in the Iroquois society was incredible. As a matter of fact, them as clan mothers were essentially the preeminent force within Iroquois society. So, no, these gender roles, the idea that if you took a European woman and transported her, you know, like this peasant woman from the painting that he showed earlier, that's like dying of cholera, but also thinks Jesus is what gonna save her. If you transported her to Iroquois, then she'd be fucking blown away by the fact that there's women who are actually being respected as equals and are actually being lauded as leaders of their society. But right, it's all just natural, right? That's all just ubiquitous across human history, and there's no need to go into detail about that little thing. Let's just sweep it to the side.
Whereas Christianity preaches chastity in regards to intercourse, the modern atheist movement views such as a mere recreational act. Whereas Christianity claims that life is sacred and thus tends to oppose abortion, the modern atheist movement has branded it as a human right and vehemently supports it.
There's also plenty, yeah.
This is just weird. Like, are you co-opting euthanasia support with abortion support? Like, this is real weird.
Yeah,
like,
those are
all I'm seeing are claims that, you know, people's right to their own lives, their own autonomy without harming others is somehow bad. That's all I'm getting from this.
And a lot of generalizations of huge groups of people.
That too.
You need to understand, maybe that woman should have the right to their own bodily autonomy and should have the right to be able to make the choice of what she does with her own body. And really, it's none of my business whatsoever, because I don't have any stake in her life whatsoever. But you need to understand, Carisi, what about Magic Man? What about what the Magic Man said?
Don't offend the Magic Man.
That's
don't
right.
Do that.
Christians support Magic Man, atheists no Magic Man.
I mean, like...
And what about Satanists? Like, shouldn't this be about Satanism instead of atheism?
Well, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, because he's saying all of these things about atheism while just ignoring the basic fact that really, beyond the lack of a prescription of a deity, there is no commonality between atheists whatsoever. Like, you can basically be anything and an atheist simultaneously, as long as it's not a theological position. But these people always insist on fucking ascribing all of these other things on top of that. And it's always these like very Western atheist ideas, like he said, you know, like it always mirrors, like as though there's no criticism of Islam in the Middle East, there's no criticism of Hinduism in India, there's no criticism of any of the other religions all over the world from their own atheistic communities. No, it's all just the same bog standard arguments from some white bread looking dude from fucking Minnesota or some shit, as far as they're concerned when it comes to atheism.
Anything that Christianity stands for, the atheist will stand for the exact opposite, almost 100% of the time, without fail. And so, regardless of your personal views on said topics, what, overall, does this tell us? It tells us exactly what I said earlier, that religion is inherent to the human condition. And the best way I can prove this phenomenon is r/atheism. r/atheism on the website known as Reddit is by far the largest atheist forum on the internet, with millions of subscribers.
I love this so much. It's like atheists can point out, like, look at the Crusades. Look at all these genocides that were done in Jesus's name. Look at all of these terrorist organizations that are operating to this day.
Look at 9/11.
Jesus Christ. And then they've got...
You got the atheism. You got the subreddit. Look at that.
9/11 or atheism, same thing.
I just love it because, like, even like the thumbnail on r/atheism, you know, it's just it's self-realizing. But
I just have to ask, guys, because I got in kind of late, so I hadn't seen anything. This isn't just an elaborate troll, because so far this has had far more meme usage in it than I would expect, and I'm thinking this guy's just full of it.
No, you know what? At first, I had that same assumption, though, Kurisu. I did. I had the exact same assumption. I was like, this has got to be bullshit. Like, this guy's just got to be trying to stir the fucking pot, right? No, everybody in the comments section are, like, acting like this is, like, the penultimate, like, destruction of atheism. This is the video that takes us down.
Bringing up r/atheism
That's right.
is a strong point.
I mean, sure, Galileo was...
It don't have words.
But what about r/atheism? No, go ahead, AJ.
Yeah.
The amount of people online on when he took this screenshot is less than the views me and Ayden/stream got. So just wanted to say that.
Represent.
And tens of thousands of visitors per day. It is, however, notorious for being an absolute cringe fest. F all religion. I don't care. I don't care about the Bible. I don't care what your invisible sky daddy says. I don't give a single F about me disrespecting your religion when it has shown nothing but disrespect towards what I stand for. I hate the Bible, and I will never agree with any...
My post. Just saying.
Like okay, well, let's just like actually read this without the mocking voice for a moment. Like, all right, so fuck all religion. I don't care. I don't care about the Bible. I don't care what your invisible sky daddy says. I don't give a single shit about me disrespecting your religion when it has shown nothing but disrespect towards what I stand for. I mean, like, I know that's like real funny if you're trying to meme on it in a funny, silly voice. But
yeah,
like,
when you really do take a look at it, you get some sincerity out of that, some understanding, like, this is the crux of the position. It's like, all this has been pushed on us. It's like, no, I just don't care about this. Forget it.
Yeah, so we have another super chat, AJ. I'm going to do it 3 times. Drop that name, AJ.
Roshina.
Roshina, thank you very much. Roshina donated $4.99 and said, why does he keep comparing atheism to only North American Christianity? Why not any other religion and or sects? Because he doesn't know anything about anything besides that.
As far as he's concerned, there are no other religions.
Well, I mean, like, doing research and actually gaining a nuanced understanding of things isn't exactly the friend of his kind of religion, you know? So I don't think...
Absolutely not, yeah. I'm not going to study into all this other stuff, all these other opinions of the world. I know what I got's right, and these atheist guys are here, and I'm going to give them the what for with the Wojak memes and our atheism. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. This guy over here, he said that he wasn't ever done this. He was done nothing but sure disrespect by religious folk on the basis of some superstitious belief. So that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
He said bad words. Over.
I censored the words. But to answer the super chat, I think it's a lot harder for him to make his arguments about atheism leading to like violence if you compare it to Islam or other religions that have a history of terrorist attacks, which is all of them. But this Reddit post, I think if you were to imagine that the context of this is somebody who got kicked out of their parents' house because they were gay and their parents are religious, it kind of makes it a little bit more, a little less memey, I think. And like, wow, maybe there's a reason that somebody would feel so passionate about this, you know?
Yeah.
Like there are reasons that people would say something like this. Like, and just because somebody made a slightly rude post on the internet doesn't prove Magic Man is real either.
Right. No, but I'm going to say it in a silly voice. That totally invalidates everything he said.
Nothing but disrespect towards what I stand for. I hate the Bible, and I will never agree with anyone who supports it. I hate everyone who tells me to stop talking S about religion. F all religion. Yeah. Now, to show just how fanatical and thus easily manipulated and predictable such people are, I'm going to go undercover and use all my writing and psychological credence to manufacture a post that will reach the top of r/atheism.
Awesome.
Do you think I can do it? Well,
this just proves that not everybody on the internet's opinion is necessarily valid.
Yeah.
He's proving that point.
Seriously. I don't know, man. Like the argumentation here is super flimsy. It's basically just, let me just appeal to a whole bunch of people who are already greased into all of these different notions and concepts already. It's just, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds really bold and brave of you to do. Let me just make a video telling everybody that their misconceptions about this ideology are right.
Of course, he hasn't cited what his actual beliefs are.
Well, I mean, like, if he cited his beliefs, then he would be required to defend them, and that's a little bit more difficult than just saying, yeah, they're stupid because Fedora.
I put a Wojak meme on behind this text post. I win.
Atheism is nothing but retarded, and that's the case because look at this spinning Fedora gif. It's like, you gotta try
1 million views.
let's see. Introducing Alex, the undercover atheist. All right, first, we're going to need a new account. Let's call it Plus Size Skeptic. Genius. I must say, I am baffled that name wasn't taken. There we go. Plus Size Skeptic. We're in. All right, so this is the post that I've managed to come up with. Should I leave my Christian boyfriend? I'm a 24-year-old woman. He's 25. I'm an atheist. He's a Christian. Everything between us personally is fine. Our difference in beliefs have never gotten in the way until now. We've recently started talking about abortion. We've only been together for 6 months, so shockingly, we've never actually discussed the topic before. Well, as you may expect, it didn't go well. Of course, I'm pro-choice, and he's pro-life. Or, as I like to call it, anti-woman.
Accurate.
I want to ask you guys and gals.
What was that?
I said that's accurate. And is this an argument? Like, are you making a point against atheism or against pro-choice people?
I don't know. I don't see how, like, I'm going to do a bunch of subterfuge over on r/atheism, and that's going to prove that they're wrong. It's like, okay.
I posted on atheism subreddit, therefore God.
I lied.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Isn't he breaking the ninth commandment?
I was about to say, I violated the 9th commandment. That proves that God's real. It's like, okay, dude.
See you in hell.
Good.
It's okay. Gotta forgive my sins because that's how this works.
Yeah.
Even if everything else in your relationship was fine, would you stay with someone who didn't believe in a woman's right to choose? Now, without tooting my own horn, this post is a masterful example of social engineering. Let me explain why. To my knowledge, Reddit is about 80% male, 20% female, and I imagine r/atheism probably has similar demographics to the site as a whole. When social engineering for the maximum effect, you're going to want to aim for the largest demographic possible, which in this case is of course going to be men.
I'd just like to ask you to ban Deviant Outcast from the chat really quick.
Secrets out.
And so
man.
therefore, by pretending that the author of this post is a woman, we will naturally elicit more responses, because men tend to hold women in a higher regard, especially when they are a rarity. In addition, I've implanted an appeal for attention, guys and gals, implying a universal desire for feedback, as well as numerous emotional trigger words, such as pro-choice, anti-woman, and right to choose, which should exhibit an almost automatic emotional response.
This guy, like, wrote this over the course of, like, a 20-minute shit session. It's just sitting here like, I'm fucking Niccolo goddamn
That's what I was just
Machiavelli
thinking.
himself.
You're sitting there, already done his business, just feverishly typing this out. Yes, this is perfect.
I typed
More
this with one hand, I did.
Crap. Oh.
The greatest tragedy was when Tumblr banned porn, it was.
Naturally, this post is also completely ridiculous, and intentionally so. The idea of ending your 6-month relationship over one mere disagreement is absolutely absurd, especially considering, as highlighted twice for good measure, everything else in the relationship is fine.
This wouldn't be one small disagreement. This could be fundamental to the relationship. Like, what if plus size gets pregnant? Then what? And they have a disagreement over
that's the idea of, like, a very realistic possibility for any two people that are not I'm trying to think of the term.
sexually active.
Well, any two people that are sexually active and do not have a vasectomy of some sort, yeah, there's obviously going to be a concern of pregnancy. So if you disagree about the outcome of that and you can't come to an agreement moving forward, then I don't see how that's just some like, oh yeah, that's just, it's basically fighting over whether or not we keep the toilet seat up, whether or not we have an abortion, same thing, It's like, what the fuck?
Well, I can say from personal experience, this hits a little close to home. Not so far as the abortion argument or anything with pregnancy, but this is the way my last relationship kind of was for fits and starts. Lasted a while, but these were serious issues that caused stress, serious disagreements.
Like, these guys pretending to be this person, but there are people who actually deal with this type of stuff. You know what I mean? He's laughing about it. I'm such a Machiavellian Reddit shit poster.
Yeah, like, he really was like sucking his own dick there for a minute about just how brilliant this post was. It's like, okay, dude.
My Reddit post made me suck myself off to completion.
Being very serious for a moment, he laughs about this, thinks it's the greatest thing ever, and it, to be honest, like mildly upset me for a split second because it reminded me of that stuff. Like, these are serious issues. That's all I can stress.
I'm sorry.
The damage there. No, it's fine. It's just, to be completely, human in it for a moment. Say hate to break the comedy, but to help with the point we're all trying to make here, like these, this stuff affects people.
Basically, fuck this guy.
Right. It's not like you just burnt the toast. Is basically the TLDR for everybody looking at this.
Fine. Yet, if I'm right, these details will simply be ignored and they'll just eat it up anyway. Why? Because we're giving them the illusion of power by playing into the fantasy that a member of a group they view as their enemy, which in this case is...
I think your psychological assessment of these people says a lot more about you and your outlook of people than it does of atheism. Like, I'm going to do this, and then they're going to assume they're going to get power out of this, and then they're going to, oh my goodness, they're going to say all these horrible, disgusting things about this, and I'm just so goddamn brilliant when I do this.
Yeah, it's like, people can find this post, right?
Right? Like, I don't know if this come across as anything but just creepy, really, how much he's reading into this.
Yeah, and like his fake avatar is a man, but it's a woman in the post. And like, also the idea that the view that Christians are anti-abortion is like inaccurate or something, like, it's very accurate.
I mean, I do know some Christians who are accepting of abortion, but they're a minority.
Could potentially be hurt depending on their input. All right, looking good. Let's check back tomorrow and see if I'm right.
24 hours later.
All right, it's been a day. Let's see how it went. 582 notifications, 759 comments, 1,243 upvotes. 25 times the metrics of the average post. And of course, the responses are just as unbelievable as you may expect. Dump him! Yes, he is evil! OP, this sounds like the start of a potentially abusive relationship.
Not everybody on the internet has English as their first language.
Right.
So just wanted to say that.
I mean, like, also, I love how he, like, is very clearly just, like, selecting, like, the worst comments possible. Like, just read them from top to bottom, and I'm sure that if you looked at the top-rated comment, it'd probably be pretty damn reasonable. But no, that's not going to fit the narrative of the video that I'm making right now, so we're not going to include that.
What? Indeed, just as predicted, at least 99% of the responses were calling for the fictional relationship to end, with many acting as if the man being pro-life meant that he was the devil incarnate who had committed an unforgivable sin. This is coming from the same people who refer to others as a clump of cells, I might add. An almost voluntary religious delusion, you could say. And
I mean,
Oh
my god, one
cells?
person said the word clump of cells, therefore it's a voluntary religious delusion. It's like, how much more can you fucking read into the... It was 3 words on a Reddit post, and he's like, atheism destroyed! It's like, what?
They basically called him the devil incarnate, but I won't show any comments that actually say that.
Right. That's like I said, I just have a feeling that, you know, if this post in fact still exists, I don't know. I'm tempted to look this up. Hold on. Brief intermission. I need to look this up. I need to see if this is still here.
I mean, are we not made up of cells? And excuse me if I care less about the feelings of somebody who's pro-life than fighting for the rights of people to get abortions that want them. I mean, I'm for on-demand abortions, drive-through abortions. Just come in the car and spread them, and we'll take care of you through the window. Like, it should be available for everybody if they want one. That's what I think. And this person is just kind of a dick. Plus size. And also, he said, I'm surprised this username isn't taken. Like, what person on Reddit who's a woman is going to intentionally name themselves plus size skeptic?
Right? Like, yeah, I'm surprised this wasn't already taken, like implying that like all atheists are just like fucking Homer Simpson incarnate, basically.
Probably came up with the idea to do the woman the pose as a woman after making the account.
I'm not
made the account, went to sleep, woke up. Yeah, exactly.
I cut a bunch of pubes off right in the video and strapped them to my fucking face, but that's why atheism's just a bunch of cringe, mate. It's like, shut the fuck up.
Like,
And
how
just
can I
as
be anti-woman, I pretend to be a woman on Reddit and lie. I'm not anti-woman.
So he's doing internet drag.
Yeah.
That is true. That is true.
The
Congratulations.
worst thing though is he's an Apple user.
That is true. Fuck
That's
Apple.
the worst part.
predicted, it
And I don't want to hear a bunch of shit in the comments about me saying that about Apple, like they were saying about Fallout in the other video. I want to hear that, audience. I don't want to hear that skeptic in my head that's trying to make commentary on that. Shut up.
was mostly men who were particularly engaged, mostly to morally postulate.
As a male, I can honestly and earnestly say that no man is qualified to pass judgment on the issue of abortion.
I mean, based?
I agree, but that's also kind of a self-refuting comment.
Yeah. Ultimately, yeah, it is a self-refuting comment, which, I mean, whoopsie daisy. But I understand the sentiment that they're trying to convey here. And that is that, like, ultimately the consequences of abortion are not really anything that we're going to have to deal with on a physical level. That's them that have to deal with that. And it's them that have to deal with all the potential risks that come with bringing that child to term as well. So what a horrible analysis that this person has made.
Yeah, like why would you ever want to force somebody to take a baby to term, especially if they don't want to? I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
As an atheist male who always relates more to women and often find myself empathizing with women more, I would 100% dump him if I was you.
Would you stay with someone who didn't believe in a woman's right to choose? No, and I don't even have a uterus.
Not sure about that one. As expected, the responses were universal, fanatical, and absurd. But we're not done yet. According to Reddit, this post was read by just over 100,000 people. Now, 100,000 people is quite a lot, but I said we were going to reach the top of r/atheism. And in order to do that, we're going to have to do 10 times better than this.
Oh,
So let's
God.
fulfill their fantasy and give them exactly what they want. Today, I left my Christian boyfriend. Thank you, r/atheism, for giving me the strength to do so. Yesterday, I made a post asking people whether or not I should leave my Christian boyfriend, in spite of everything else being fine due to his anti-choice views. I expected to only get a handful of replies, but much to my surprise, there were over 700 responses. I read them all, and couldn't be any more grateful for all your thoughts. For what it's worth, I've had a few people message me about what I decided to do, and the answer is that I was honestly on the fence. But after reading all of your wise words, I realized that leaving is the only option. And so, as tough as it was, as of today, my life is now Christian-free. I know I am just some random woman on the internet, and most of you probably don't care, but I just wanted to thank you all for giving me the strength to make this decision. I'm now looking forward to open up a fresh chapter of life, where I am now free to find a man who would respect me. An atheist man. Thank you all. What a ridiculous post. If I'm right, then this post will be the dream come true. It is both the fulfillment of one, a member of a group.
Yeah, I can't find this post. I can't find either of these posts anywhere on that subreddit. I've been looking like on and off during this entire thing, and I can't find hide nor hair of this. And I have a feeling that that's because if somebody actually went and took a look at the post, they would have come across responses far more reasonable than the handful that he decided to cherry pick through and decide were the ones that best suited his argument. So, once the deception had been wrought and once he got what he wanted, he basically skipped town like a fucking snake oil salesman. Good job, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to know what he thinks that this proves. I mean, the internet is anonymous. People just go by what information you give them. And you posted about a 6 months relationship where you're not married. You haven't been together that long, comparatively to a lot of relationships. And you have a fundamental, foundational disagreement that you've just found out about. And it's an atheist forum. Of course, they're going to say, no, this isn't going to work. What did you expect?
Yeah. And more so, I just want to hear this guy, what constitutes a legitimate response to that post?
What's wrong with the responses?
Yeah, what would have been a good response to you? No, you should have went with him. And as a matter of fact, you should go to church with him and you should start worshiping Jesus with him. I'm sure you're going to find that all over the place on r/atheism. What the fuck is the standard of a good comment here? He doesn't give it, of course, because you're just supposed to turn your brain off and laugh at the people who are giving somebody a benefit of the doubt that's having a hard time.
Yeah, and it's not just the fact that he acts like the only disagreement is the fact over the pro-choice thing, which is still huge in its own right, but one has a completely different belief system than the other. How often do Christian and atheist people get together? I'd love for him to post some statistics about that. Probably not that often.
They perceive
Probably not.
as their enemy getting hurt, while at the same time, too, giving them a sense of moral gratitude over it. So, yet again, let's see what happens.
I'll read this one, Ayden, from Roshina for $4.99. Thank you for the super chat. It says 6 months is nothing. I've had toe infections that last longer. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. You've been extremely generous tonight.
Oh,
Thank you very much for all of your donations. Oh boy, we got the foreboding music now.
Oh crap.
Was this an ad for a Laserdisc player?
Of course, just as expected, our post did in fact reach the top of r/atheism, with over 50.
Oh wow, top posts today. Wow, I'm sorry you didn't reach the top of the subreddit. You gotta reach top of all time or nobody gives a shit.
Fire him out of a cannon into the sun.
I just love that. They never mention that they're the top posts of that day. They're like, we reached the top of the bloody subreddit. We did. It's yeah, for 24 hours. Congratulations, dude. You were a flash in the pan that everybody forgot about.
Yeah,
Here,
congratulations, liar.
15,000 upvotes and hundreds of comments, almost all of which were, naturally, congratulating me on my brave.
Oh my god, wow, what horrible people. Congratulations for getting out of a potentially abusive situation. Like, what were they, once again, what was the standard for a good comment here? You should have stayed with him.
Yeah,
Maybe you weren't feeling comfortable with him, but you should have stayed with him anyway.
because berating somebody when they post on Reddit about doing something and feeling confident in their decision is just the best thing to do. That's naturally what everyone should do.
Well,
no,
yeah.
people are going to be supportive.
I love this because it's like supposed to paint atheists as like bad people or like horrible people, but like all these people are like giving her the benefit of the doubt and like being supportive. Like what like atheists, like what AJ said at the very beginning of this like little segment, what exactly is being proved here?
That he had the top post on atheism for the day.
Wow. Owned.
A wise decision. Some people even found the post such a pleasure that they even paid real money to give it an award. Over 20 of them, in fact. So much so that I, the plus-size skeptic, now have ad-free Reddit Premium for the next 2 weeks.
Thanks for the gold, kind stranger.
Okay, so why was this so easy to pull off? Real free thinkers could never be so easily manipulated.
These atheist morons are generous.
Yeah. Free thinkers could never be this easily manipulated. So let me get this straight. The top comment of your post should have been somebody saying, I've traced your IP address and have found that there is in fact no woman living at your address whatsoever. Upon further examination, given recent satellite imagery of your location, I have found that you are not in fact a plus-size person whatsoever, as opposed to the fact that you said that you were. Therefore, with this information in hand, I can confirm definitively that you are neither one of those. Like, what the hell is the standard for what they should have said?
Like looking through your window, that the curtains you would have, no woman would ever choose those. And I looked through your garbage and I saw that there was regular food instead of lean cuisine. So you must not be a woman.
You should stay with that man, you stupid bitch. That's what the Christian would have said. So I guess that's the right comment, right, buddy?
Get in there and start making babies.
Wow, I would watch.
Real free thinkers. Real free thinkers like this fucking bronze bloke over here. He would have said, you're full of shit, you is.
I'm getting me skin bronze.
Because free thinkers are just that. Free. They aren't predictable because their pragmatic nature makes them prone to originality. But the religious, which these atheists, whether they know it or not, are of course very predictable because their beliefs are set in stone.
Oh my god, people have empathy for a person that's in a plight. Oh my god, that means atheism's just a bunch of bullshit.
Uh-oh, as a general social species, humans are predictable. Watch out.
I know, right? Like, every single person is predictable on one level or another. It's just a question of how predictable or unpredictable they are, and that's not a metric of how much of a free thinker they are, really, whatsoever. Like, he just sneaks so many of these premises by people over the course of this video, and it's really quite impressive how many he tries to get through the back door without you noticing.
Atheists may have rejected the concept of God, but whether they realize it or not, they are hardwired to worship. And if they won't worship him, then they will worship something else, whether
like Allah or Ahura Mazda or sorry, we're gonna worship communism because that's basically synonymous with atheism, of course. I mean, if you really think about it, communism's just an evolution of atheism.
Yeah, an evolution.
Got him.
I like this image, the faded hammer and sickle over the cross. Like, that's very meaningful. But
Jesus.
I don't know if you guys want to finish this, but I think we could probably go a few more minutes or whatever, and then probably like or call it a day. It's what do you guys think? Because this video is kind of annoying.
Yeah, I think it's mostly ran its course, but we could maybe give it one more. We could try and see if we can make we can spin a little bit more gold out of this hay.
Okay, Go ahead.
Political ideology, or more often than not, themselves. They are no different to those who they mock. Granted, as opposed to being a lesson about atheism, this series of posts could also be a textbook example of why overly moderated online echo chambers are in fact a bad thing, as well as how fictional tales can very easily spread to millions of people online with great ease. But besides the point.
I mean, Christians have never been manipulated en masse to believe things or anything like that. You know, Jim Jones didn't use Christian messaging to lead loads of people over to Jonestown and get them to drink poison Kool-Aid and kill themselves en masse. That was atheism that made him do that.
Yeah, that's what Matt Powell told me.
R/atheism is a place that showcases beyond any reasonable doubt that even atheism, the very definition of rejecting religion, can actually turn into somewhat of a religion in of itself. Now, of course, R/atheism is not representative of the average atheist by any.
All right, well then your entire argument that you just set up is entirely worthless then. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Much
And there's
appreciated.
Completely wasted our time.
Yeah.
Is religion bad? Like, is it a bad thing for atheism to be a religion? Like,
I mean, like, yeah, I've always loved that, the idea that atheism being a religion is somehow a negative thing to religious people. Like, you're like us, that's bad. It's like, okay. Even if that's
Yeah,
true,
exactly.
I'm pretty sure that wouldn't be a negative. It's not, but even if it was true, I'm pretty sure that would be a positive rather than a negative.
Call it what you want. Doesn't change the facts.
That is
Yeah.
correct. Well, that was pretty fun, I gotta say. I hope that the audience enjoyed it. They seem to have enjoyed it based on what I saw in the comments. So everybody that's been watching, if you enjoyed this stream, please do like the stream, share the stream, subscribe to Atheist Junior, and check out that motherfucking Patreon, all right? I know you got it. I know that you've got $100 burning a hole in your pocket, and you probably think maybe I should give that to my grandkids. No! You should plant that as a seed in the ministry of Atheist Junior so that he can spread the good word that Kent Hovind is a piece of garbage. Amen.
Amen, brother.
gay
Have a
men.
good night, everybody.
Yeah, you said it, Ayden. All right, and I'm going to put a link to Chris's channel too. Oh, we have one more super chat. If anybody wants to send more before I end the stream, feel free. But from Deconstructing Laura 42, it says, it was great to catch you all live. Have a great day, guys. Thank you. Thank you to Laura, and thank you to Roshina for the super chats and everybody. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for hanging out with us.
Oh, yeah. Y'all are awesome as always.
Yeah, I'm going to put a link to your channel as well, Krisu. So,
Thank you.
or leave a comment with a link to your channel, and I'll pin it.
Will do.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.